everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I just want to say thank you to all of you who have stuck around, and welcome to any new viewers who are here today. Well, today I'm finally back to read to you part 5 of my What If Awakening to Remember series. Today's thought-provoking question is a big one, and it is, what if heaven was really here on planet Earth, and my belief that I must prove myself worthy before I die in order to go to heaven was simply a story I have been told to be true? Well, this is the question I had to ask myself after my sister died in March of 2018, after she returned to me in spirit on Easter Sunday in April, just a few weeks later. She connected with me to show me firsthand what happens to us when we die and cross over to the other side. Many of us have been raised with the teachings that heaven is a sanctuary or a paradise, held only for those lucky souls who have managed to prove their worthiness of entering its pearly gates after we die. This idea has been greatly embedded into our belief system through the many religions that have influenced us since childhood. In fact, our entire history seems to have been built up around religion, our beliefs in God, heaven and hell, and the fight between good and evil. We see it in the stories we read, in the movies we watch, and in the documentaries we see. I remember only too well as a child growing up, experiencing the feelings of fear of going to hell. Whenever I caught myself swearing or being unkind towards another, like being mean to my little sister when we were kids, or if I didn't get my homework finished, I would feel bad and was convinced that I would be punished because God sees everything and He would know if I didn't do the right thing. I would feel guilty if I didn't eat everything on my plate at dinner time, and if I didn't show respect for my elders, I would feel ashamed. I would find myself praying to God most nights while falling asleep, asking for forgiveness and hoping I would not go to hell for not being a good kid. When I think back to how I must have felt at the age of 5, 6 and 7 years old, and then consider how it must have felt for others of a similar age with much stronger religious backgrounds, it seems like an awfully big burden that we carry around on such little shoulders. Is it any wonder that many young children who were brought up, prior to the 90s especially, would go around feeling that they were not good enough or not worthy enough, and to top it off, were convinced that they had been abandoned by God? These experiences really didn't do us any favours when it comes to developing a healthy self-esteem. Surprisingly, my parents were not full-on religious at all. We all believed in God, and on occasion went to church, but this was rare. We were never made to go to church or forced to believe in any one particular religion. I think that as children our minds are like sponges, and if we happen to have grown up in an environment where religion was talked about or discussed, then perhaps we might come to some understanding or conclusion about God and heaven. Unfortunately for many kids, what they hear about religion or experience from the adults around them at an early age can sometimes be misunderstood through a mind that has not yet fully matured. In my case, a few of my good friends attended Sunday school regularly when I was in primary school, and they obviously had a great influence on what I believed about God and heaven. They would tell me that if I didn't learn and follow the 10 Commandments, I would go straight to hell, and that my family were sinners because we didn't pray before we ate our dinner. As I got a little older, I remember that when I did something wrong and was punished for it, I was actually convinced that it was a sign from God that I had sinned and will more than likely never go to heaven. I remember emptying the tea leaves out of one of my Nana's favourite orange teapots into her garden and accidentally knocked a big chip out of it when I banged it against the stone steps out the back door. Just the very thought of how much trouble I would be in brought me to tears, and I remember praying to God and asking what I could do to make it right. It was pretty common to be threatened by your grandparents, being told that if you didn't do this or that you wouldn't go to heaven, or that God knows the truth. Obviously, it wasn't their intention to scare their grandchildren. It was just something that was said to a child to get them to conform and do what was asked of them. When I look back on my childhood, I had developed a very strong belief system about good and evil at an early age, and I very much feared doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. Due to these beliefs from childhood, I, like many others, developed a strong need to always be good in order to go to heaven and not hell, which later developed into a strong need to be right and not wrong, and to say yes when I really meant no. This all stems from a core belief that we have held since childhood that tells us that if we do it wrong or get it wrong or say the wrong thing, then there must be something wrong with us, and that we should be very afraid that something bad might happen to us as a consequence of being wrong. We can sometimes see this pattern in our own children, and you may even have noticed that you yourself still do this as an adult today, if you're willing to admit it. I know I have carried these patterns since childhood, and my husband would kindly point this out to me when I would find myself having an argument with our son. I'm so grateful for my husband's wisdom and honesty. Neither my son or I would want to give up the fight and admit we were wrong, but I began to realise over time that our children can bring out the inner child inside of us, that unhealed part of us that didn't feel good enough or worthy enough as a child, and continues to fight to be right at any cost in order to feel good enough and worthy enough here in our now moment, oblivious to the fact that we are reliving a memory deeply rooted in our past beliefs. Yes, our kids can bring out the worst in us, and for that matter, so can our parents, siblings, and even our closest friends. But were you aware that through their pushing your buttons and triggering your emotions, they offer you hidden gifts that can help you heal, grow, and transform? And if you can manage to fully understand this, then you might also be able to understand how choosing love over fear can open the doors to heaven here on earth. When I stood in my sister's shoes by her invitation and channeled her spirit on Easter Sunday in April 2018, I watched on as she met her closest family members, friends and loved ones who had already passed and left the earth's plane, waiting for her arrival at heaven's gate. The information that was revealed to me beyond the gates into heaven totally changed and transformed me, and has changed how I see and live my life here on planet Earth forever. As we walked through the gates and into the light, we were met in a chamber resembling a futuristic cathedral, surrounded in vivid colours of white, violet, indigo and magenta, with 12 light beings who call themselves the Council of Light, standing before us. The Council of Light are a group of ascended light beings who serve and oversee our ascension process. They offer divine guidance, instruction, and clear direction on the paths we chose to take and agreed upon when we signed up for our missions here on earth. As we stood before these beautiful beings of light that appeared to stand about 7 to 8 feet tall, I will never forget the love that was pouring out from their light bodies and into our hearts. The love was so intense that I felt the tears streaming down my face. These feelings were like nothing I had ever experienced before. We could hear the voice of angels welcoming us back home. Then suddenly memories began to flood our minds like deja vu of other times we had met in this chamber to review other lifetimes that we had both experienced on earth together. Moments after, they began a communication that was entirely telepathic, explaining that we were about to witness my sister Melody's life review and that it was most important that we remember that there is no judgment for any experiences back on the earth plane. We were reminded that earth is like a school where we come to eventually experience heaven on earth, where we can experience the same freedom, joy and abundance that we experience in spirit, but in human form on earth. With that, a giant movie screen appeared before us where we witnessed my sister's life from conception to her final days on earth and everything in between. She learned of all the paths she could have taken and didn't, and all the paths she did choose and why and how it affected her life experience, her health and eventual illness. She witnessed all the people that she affected from all the choices she had made, good and bad. She re-experienced all the beauty and devastation that occurred in her lifetime, but not once was she judged for any wrongdoing. Not once was she ever made accountable for her wrong actions, failures, or wrong choices. She was, however, commended for all her right actions, all the good she offered, and the love she brought to others, and most importantly, for fulfilling her mission and agreement to awaken me, her sister, at the perfect time. I learned in that moment that she had already planned the time in which she was to return home in spirit form and leave her human body here on earth. It was planned that her passing would activate and awaken myself and several other family members in order to assist us in fulfilling our own personal agreements that we had made prior to being born. I learned that her passing coincided with our Mother Earth's own ascension, which I will explain briefly a little later. And this triggered a number of events to occur, one of which was to become certified in meditation training and holistic counselling. I later became aware that this was in preparation to enable me to fulfill my own mission to support the many collective souls I have made agreements with during their transitional phase as the Great Awakening unfolds here on Earth, which began in 2018 and will be accelerating exponentially from now and into Easter of 2020 and right through to 2021 and beyond. As I witnessed my sister's life review, I then began to experience a version of my own life review, like a sneak peek of my life's history and how it has unfolded, an experience very similar to my sister's, with the big difference being that many of the people I was shown in my life were still alive today. I was informed that I was gifted this insight to help me understand, overcome and resolve some issues that have kept me stuck in a bit of a time warp for a number of years. I was shown the motivation behind why certain people had hurt or harmed or betrayed me in the past, so that I could learn how to forgive them and to no longer judge others for the choices and decisions they made that ultimately affected my life. This was because some of these people play or have played a pivotal role in my life experiences and future events yet to unfold. I came to learn that I have much work to do, and many are counting on me. I was shown that the information I share from this and other experiences will have the ability to uplift and shift many lightworkers and way showers like myself out of their comfort zone and encourage them to discover their own missions. This is because they will have also had similar experiences in their life and will find comfort in learning they are not alone in all of this, as it can get quite lonely when what you experience is sometimes unexplainable. This whole experience left me with an absolute knowing that there is no such thing as hell, only a version of it created in our minds. And yes, we do go to a heaven when we die, leaving our physical body behind. The heaven I witnessed was not at all like I imagined. But that's because the ideas I had came out of pictures from Bible teachings and in books I had read as a child. That part of us that breathes for us and continues to pump blood through our heart and veins to keep the body alive is our soul, and remains very much alive forever in the form of what we might imagine energy to look like, formless and infinite. I also learned that every person on the planet that dies, even by accident, by disease, murder, group shootings and the like, rape, birth, young or old, suicide, tsunami, and other natural disasters, all had their particular timeline of death planned within agreement with other souls, both family members and sometimes soul collectives. Their death is not a random event. It is in support of agreements with others. For example, a mother loses a child due to a drug addiction, and then the child dies through suicide. The mother chose to learn how one might feel and what one experiences when raising a child who becomes addicted, and all the experiences one might have as a result. The son may have agreed to play this role, but may have also written in his agreement several opportunities where he could exit this agreement if it were to become too much to bear. This is where suicide would have been chosen. As a result of this crisis, the mother might have then chosen for her mission that she would offer support to others who have experienced such loss and help thousands of others who have suffered the same experience. Together, many souls can then spread an awareness to other parents, creating an opportunity to lessen suicide by addressing the causes of suicide, like addiction and depression and so forth. You must understand that when we set up these agreements, we never know how exactly they will play out or when. Timing is everything. We are also not in human form. It's a telepathic communication, and agreement is embedded as a signature on our energetic template, our soul, if you will. And when we arrive at birth, we lose all memory of who we really are, and even our agreements. It is this awakening process we all go through that triggers memories and forces us to question the unquestioned, the unexplainable, and to discover more truth of who we are, where we come from, and why we are here. This is what assists us to ascend in our human evolution, where we become fully integrated with our soul. It is very hard to explain something in a linear sense through written language that has been communicated to you telepathically and visually. It's a whole lot more interwoven, but I've just given you a glimpse of an idea of what happens. In future transmissions, I will break down this information in more detail. This experience has truly helped me understand and accept death, and when I see people lose their lives for no good reason, of course it saddens me, but I remember that their death was never in vain. It was to help those who are left behind to grow and transform through the process of grieving, to overcoming loss, finding gratitude and forgiveness, and finding compassion, love and hope once again. This is true even when there are mass killings and mass deaths through natural or man-made disasters, as these experiences are designed to wake us up and to appreciate what we have and to overcome fear in order to eventually bring more peace onto the planet. What I want to share with you is that our planet, our Mother Gaia, is currently going through a major transition, and we, her children, are making that transition with her. We are all quite literally waking up together, and this was foretold by many shamans, healers, and psychics around the globe, and was expressed with the Mayan calendar foretelling that we were coming to the end of days back in 2012. What many believed was going to be the end of the world was perceived by the awakened community as the end of the world as we know it, and the beginning of a new world was being born. Since the 21st of December 2012, many thousands of human beings globally have been experiencing moments of awakening, with moments of remembering of who they are on a much deeper level than they ever knew existed. They have been discovering a different version of the truth about our earth, its inhabitants, and how we came to be here. I myself began my spiritual journey in 2008 and experienced my first deep awakening in 2012, with many more since, and have continued to evolve to this day. My experience I share with you after my sister's passing has catapulted me to a whole new level of awareness, and it has taken me all this time to finally find the courage to reveal my truth to those who resonate with what I have to share. It was on the morning of the 17th of March of this year, 2020, after receiving a message from my sister and other star family members the evening before, giving me the green light to begin sharing my experiences and transmissions through this What If series to help the collective awaken to remember. To let you know that we as a human species are evolving, and with the support of our Mother Gaia and our galactic families from the stars, along with the support of many hundreds and thousands of awakened souls around the world, we are moving into an era known as the Golden Age. This is the time where humanity shifts its focus and moves into a timeline where love, peace, prosperity and abundance are available for all here on planet Earth. We are now living in a time where we no longer have to die in order to go to heaven. And the key that I spoke about earlier in this transmission to experiencing this kind of freedom is hidden in our ability to choose love over fear. With the coronavirus COVID-19 at the forefront of our minds right now, you may find that what I'm sharing with you is over the top. Perhaps convinced that I am living in my own sweet fairy tale. And to be totally honest with you, I can absolutely understand why. With the constant images and messages exposed to us on the news over the past 8 months, and the proof of what we hear and see on TV, it is hard to see how this heaven on earth could possibly be real. So what if, just for a moment, we looked at this global crisis as a wake-up call from Mother Earth to remind us of what is most important in each of our lives. As we bear witness to a second wave of this virus worldwide, many of us are rediscovering how it is to be a family again. Some becoming aware of how we abuse our technology by using it as a tool to escape what we don't want to face, or to block the fearful thoughts that constantly race through our mind on a daily basis. We have become aware of how we take nature and simple outdoor pleasures for granted, and how we rely too heavily on exported goods, even within our own country and its estates. It is only in emergency situations like this that we have the time to truly pause and consider the many other ways we could and should be living, and how more self-sufficient we could all be if we weren't all in such a rush to have what we want right now. With time out from the fast-paced life we have become accustomed to, we might all soon discover a resistance to returning back to how it once was, after adjusting to a more home and family-based life for a while. The only reason we are resisting being at peace at home is, of course, because we fear our livelihood, our security, and our safety. This is a time where we must focus on sharing and caring for our fellow man. And as you may have noticed, it feels good to help others who are suffering more than ourselves. Whether it be a phone call, a text message, or the sharing of a funny video or a recipe, we are all learning to communicate from a place of love instead of fear, from a place of wanting to give, to help, and to share instead of having to give, help, and share. Something that many of our children, and especially teenagers, are desperately in need of right now. Communication and social interaction from their closest family members is so important, and to receive love and attention without any condition put in place for anyone who feels vulnerable is powerful right now. Here in Australia and in California, we can all resonate with reaching out to offer a helping hand or to receive help from others when needed, with the first-hand experiences many have had with the fires that have swept through our countries. These experiences, together with what the whole world now faces, have strengthened our ability to unite as one. So what if we stopped focusing on the bad things that might happen in our future because of this global crisis, and instead looked at the situation as a catalyst for positive change? To change how we do business and how we employ our staff, to look at new ways of schooling our children and how we can improve their social interaction. Perhaps we might consider new ways that we can bring more business back into the smaller communities to create more local jobs. How might we use common spaces to create community gardens and even orchards? And how might we convince our governments to allow those, the real workers, the heart and spine of this country, to have more say on how our hard-earned tax money is spent so everyone can benefit? For years we have been praying for change, for the world to slow down so we can live a slower pace of life, to re-establish family values and have time to enjoy life. We have all been wishing for more balance in our lives, to live in a world where we can make up the rules and live to work rather than work to live. Perhaps it's time for all of us to seriously consider, to imagine what kind of world we might like to live in. What if this time right now was a gift to wake us up from our walking sleep, to come together and take this amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to instigate the change we want to see in our world? Maybe it's time to let go of the fear, to let go of the victimhood mentality and follow our hearts once and for all. As I began explaining earlier, this feeling of fear that we experience is very much just a perception that we have developed through our belief systems. When you begin to understand where your fears come from and how to make choices and decisions that are based in love and not fear, you will develop the ability to create a life that resembles the heaven that you once only thought existed after paying for all your wrongdoings here on earth. So let's continue our discussion about these beliefs that we develop in early childhood that are often the driving force behind all the wrong decisions we make as we grow up into adulthood. We were talking about how the people in our life can often irritate the hell out of us, and how we must learn to understand that this isn't a bad thing, as this experience gifts us with an opportunity to become aware of the negative emotions we hold inside of our energy body. These emotions come up quite naturally because your energy body, your soul, knows that if they are not released, they will cause dis-ease in your body. As we grow up and find ourselves in situations where decisions have to be made, and we are fearing that our actions may hurt someone else's feelings or affect another person's outcomes, without thinking twice, we often find ourselves saying yes to requests from friends and family members when we really want to say no, always putting other people's needs ahead of our own. Another perfect example of this is when you find yourself saying sorry all the time, excusing yourself, even when it may have been the actions of the other person involved, which might warrant an apology. Or making changes in your schedule to fit in with others so they won't be inconvenienced, all the while you are inconvenienced yourself. I will be the first to admit I was once one of these people who could not say no out of fear of letting someone down, and I'm sure you know of someone in your life who fits this description. They are often referred to as the people pleasers, and with this understanding of why they always say yes when they mean no, or they promise to do you a favour and then they let you down, I would hope that you might find a way to forgive them, as they are only driven to say yes because they are subconsciously too afraid to say no, and are actually unaware of why they do this. As I have explained, this is due to earlier belief systems that have convinced them that saying no will get them in trouble. Like the example I shared earlier of my childhood belief of holding a fear of going to hell, and then as an adult would unknowingly agree to help someone out, even when I really didn't want to, because I would have my own plans. There would be a feeling deep down in the pit of my stomach that was telling me that to say no would mean not being accepted or not being a good, kind person. So I would change my plans and then hold a grudge for not being appreciated. All the while my friend is none the wiser of the thoughts running through my head. This is what making a choice out of fear actually looks like. Whereas if I was honest and told them I had already made plans, they most likely would have accepted that and moved on. And this is what honouring your truth looks like. Once I came to understand this concept and learnt to become more aware of my feelings when making decisions, I could see that the fear was coming from a past, similar experience, and I was able to drop the negative thought quite quickly. When we live our life making decisions that are born out of fear, we live a life that is a lie. We are essentially not living our truth. So it's important to learn how to make decisions that truly make us happy, that are made not to please others, but to please ourselves. If we live a life where we are not being true to ourselves, we will begin to feel unhappy and will eventually find ourselves blaming others for our unhappiness. And if this pattern is repeated in your life throughout adulthood, this unhappiness will turn into dis-ease in your body, because you will hold anger and resentment towards people you put ahead of yourself. Over time, if not addressed, the dis-ease in your body will eventually turn into a disease. The reason I'm sharing this with you is to help you understand that beliefs are very powerful and help us determine how we make decisions and take action. And more importantly, in support of today's Awakening to Remember entry, beliefs also help us to decide whether something is true or false, and helps us determine if someone is telling you the truth or is lying to you. However, if your beliefs are outdated and no longer aligned with what you believe as an adult, then you can mistakenly accuse someone of lying to you based on your own past experiences of people lying to you. There are many good examples of beliefs that even society hold as true, but in reality, each person's situation is different and shouldn't be judged on what many perceive as true. For example, when someone tells their partner, once a cheater, always a cheater, or saying to an addict that if you have failed once, you will fail again, or saying to a person struggling to lose weight that just because they lost their willpower, they will lose it again. These judgments come from us when we ourselves believe these statements to be true because of our own experiences. More often than not, the person at the other end of the conversation, like the examples above, will have been left feeling devastated as they have been wrongly accused or judged. When you can understand that many of our strongest beliefs are actually formed and developed from early childhood, and how we react to certain situations, events and people is based on those beliefs, you will come to realize that the majority of us, when exposed to certain unwanted or unexpected situations, events and people, will react on autopilot, meaning we react purely based on our own personal experiences and beliefs that were originally born out of fear and often originated from childhood, which results in reacting in a manner that protects us from the fear of getting hurt, whether that fear is imagined or real. For example, having had a similar past experience where you got hurt, or a future event that you are uncertain of the outcome, both are really just imagined, as one fear is from the past and the other from the future. Both do not exist in your now moment. In understanding this, we can better learn how to practice questioning our thoughts and feelings to situations, events, and people that cause us discomfort before we react, or in some cases, overreact. When you react in a negative manner, there is a part of you that believes you must defend yourself and keep yourself protected and safe. Just think back to a time when someone said something to you that you strongly disagreed with, or perhaps they gave you a look that hurt your feelings. Did you notice your invisible walls of defense begin to build up around you? Maybe your eye began to flutter, or your eyebrow began to twitch. Maybe you experienced a rise in blood pressure as your blood began to boil. When you find yourself having an experience like this, then it is time to ask yourself the question, where and when in my life have I felt this before? You will find that in most cases your reactions are coming from past hurts and from experiences that have never been resolved and have nothing to do with the current situation. Often it is the current situation that has triggered an unresolved pain from the past, and when you dig a little deeper, you will often find that the pain and discomfort you're feeling is coming originally from a belief that was developed from an unpleasant or misunderstood experience from your childhood. As you practice becoming more aware of your reactions, feelings and emotions to situations, events and people that bother you, the more you will realize that the circumstances had nothing to do with how you feel right now. but rather are connected to outdated and outworn beliefs that you've been holding on to for years in your subconscious mind and are now coming up to be released. With practice, you will recognize whether your reaction is based on truth and fact or just an outdated belief. This understanding will allow you to be able to thank those people that annoyed you or pissed you off or got under your skin, because in truth they have really done you a favour. Simply by being themselves and expressing how they feel, they trigger any old painful emotions that you still may be carrying within your energetic body and are doing you more harm than good. That saying, he or she irritates the hell out of me, if you think about it, is quite obviously telling us that that person is irritating you so much that hell, that fire inside of you needs to be let out, released, or let go of. When we learn to be honest about how we truly feel, we are not only practicing the art of self-respect, but we teach others how we want to be treated with honesty, integrity, and respect. It is our job to learn how to be responsible for how we feel and nobody else's. It is time to take responsibility of our own emotions. It's time to take our personal power back by putting ourselves first, being honest and telling people how we really feel. Understanding that if your truth hurts another, it really means that you are giving them an opportunity to be responsible for the pain they hold inside of them, so they can do the work themselves to release it and set themselves free. When we learn to be honest with ourselves first and show integrity in all that we do, we contribute to the betterment of humanity by reminding each other that the truth, our own truth, is what will set us free. When we take responsibility for our own emotions, relationships are healed and transformed, and this blame game that we play as adults can be left in the playground. Heaven is within reach for all of us, and the key to entering its doors right here on earth is to release and let go of all those old fear-based beliefs that keep us from honouring our truth and believing we are worthy of receiving perfect health, wealth, and abundance in all areas of our life. When you let go of old hurts, angers, fears, and regrets, you invite more love, more joy, and more abundance into your life. When we all take responsibility for our own feelings and emotions, the world will become a kinder and gentler place. Emotionally intelligent people have no need to fight wars. They have no need to judge another for their differences, and they have no need to put conditions in place in order to love one another. Emotionally intelligent people love and accept themselves as they are and where they stand in their lives in every given moment. When you can love and accept yourself, and love and accept where you are in your journey, you can then love and accept others for who they are and where they are on their journey. It's time to love you unconditionally. A simple prayer of intention for you to practice daily. With every breath and beat of my heart, may I be blessed with the remembrance of the divinity I hold within as never before, that I am now, and so it is. With love